Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Jason, thank you for being with us today, engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. With us is Rich Scheben. Welcome, Rich.
Well, how you doing this morning, Vince?
Well, I'm confused. And it's not just me, Rich. A whole bunch of people are confused as well because they don't know what's being discussed. For example, the restaurant chain had it first. They started in 1925. I'm talking about Howard Johnson's, the restaurant, and motel chain. And so, after a while, people abbreviated their name. And they were referred to as not Howard Johnson's, but HoJo's. Now people don't know if what is being discussed is the restaurant chain, the motels, or the president and vice president select. Joe and the Ho. So the only way that can be... So the only way that can be fixed is by being polite. So we can't say Joe and the Ho anymore because HoJo's is the restaurant chain, right? So we're going to have to figure out something else. And to be polite, you have to have the woman's name first. So that'd be Ho and Joe. So what a mess. What a mess. So people won't know if, you say you're going to HoJo's, whether you're going to meet with the president select and vice president or whether you're going to have some pancakes.
I remember Howard Johnson's when I was a kid back in the East Coast. It was a pretty popular chain. I don't know if they have any left in the States anymore. They might have a few. I think it's more in other countries, but, we used to go there for breakfast and lunch and dinner. Yeah. It was kind of like a family restaurant. And, unfortunately, everything is being, everything is going to be under the label of offending somebody now, Vince. We've gotten to the point where we might as well play taps around the country because the stolen election shows that America is, on life support. We should fly our flag at half-mast, upside down. Think about this. The party, the Democrat Party, that's been demanding to defund the police for so long is now the party of the police state. So the will of the people means nothing. It's now for the benefit of the will and the addictions of the elite and the people who hate America mean everything. The Democrats, and I have articles to prove this, are literally, and their decoded message to the military is to ignore the steel, ignore your oath, ignore your code, honor duty, despite having your votes being switched, which I've mentioned many articles and have one today or two, just to protect the elite establishment. The Democrats are literally vetting our soldiers because of their paranoia of this election. Think about this. The powers that be are doing everything in their power to overturn the narrative to avoid election fraud discussions. But if you need 30,000 troops, and I've read up to 40,000, including undercover people, If you need that many troops to protect you from your own people, that means you weren't elected by your own people. So let's say there's 30,000 troops. That's 29,900 more people that show up to Joe Biden's rallies. And yet the FBI is vetting our troops for violence. They want to take away their magazines, their ammo. So they're vetting our troops, but they're not even vetting illegal immigrants or legal votes. I want you to wrap your head around that, Vince.
Well, it's more than that. It's, you and I have a friend, and I'll just identify him by the name Stuart. He's probably listening right now, so I won't say where he lives, but you and I know this man. He's a wonderful man, and he is really, really sharp. He is a sharp tack. And I love chatting with him. I can sit and chat with him for hours and hours. And he has a saying, and it's only 4 words. Quote, everything is a scam, end quote. And he's right on the money, because we were talking one day about the selection for the board of directors of Laclede Electric, for which I ran, and was beaten badly. I mean, I don't know if anyone was beaten as badly as I was in the history of that corrupt organization. And that's my opinion, that it's a corrupt organization. Well, he and I have talked about that. We've talked about a local farmers cooperative in Missouri. So farmers, when they buy their feed and their fencing, they become members of a cooperative. And the idea was that if farmers got together and they said, well, let's buy in bulk. Let's buy, instead of 1 roll of fencing, let's buy 1,000. And we'll drive the price down. Everybody will get a better, lower price. Well, there's a farmers cooperative, and they had been shut down by the state of Missouri. This is in our area right here in our corrupt area of Missouri. The farmers cooperative, the lime and fertilizer operation was shut down because the scales weren't right. So what they do is they weigh the truck on the way empty. They would load it with fertilizer, then weigh it, and then that delta was what you'd be charged for fertilizer. Well, the scales weren't accurate. And I don't think it's because the scales were weighing a lighter amount than what was being paid for. I think what was happening is the customer got less than was paid for. So for 1 year, they were shut down they couldn't sell fertilizer. Okay? And that's for the farmers cooperative. That's for their own membership. Okay? So that's a scam. And then you have the warranties by corporations. Like Sears used to say on the front of the store, satisfaction guaranteed, your money back. Well, in the last 20 years or so, those signs disappeared because they didn't mean satisfaction guaranteed, your money back. They didn't mean anything. And that's what, one of the things that killed them. So what we're seeing is that warranties are misleading. Products, they lie about the ingredients in the products. Even in Wall Street, back in the 1920s, before the crash, they had the ticker tapes. And there were people who were reading the ticker tapes before the generally dumb public got a chance to find out what the stock price was. And they would buy and sell ahead of the general knowledge. So they were running the market, and they were making a fortune. And these were people who were, well respected. These were the titans of industry, the titans of banking, who were ripping off the generally dumb public. And then you had companies like General Motors. General Motors got together with Standard Oil, which ultimately became Esso, which ultimately became Exxon, and then that became Exxon Mobil. Those guys, in the early days when you had trolley cars in the cities across the United States, they got together and they bought the trolley car companies and they got rid of them. And they put in buses. So buses used oil. General Motors made buses, and what a racket that was. So they put out of business, by buying their competition, the trolley industry and the streetcar industry. So the reason that America doesn't have high-speed infrastructure rail is because of General Motors and Standard Oil and the corruption and greed that went along with it. So, Stuart, you are absolutely positively right. Everything is a scam, including the selection, including how come taxes go up? How come all of a sudden the local taxes go up? How come the county taxes go up? How come the city taxes go up? How come the federal taxes go up? Do you think people actually say, you know what? I don't think we're paying enough in taxes. We should pay more. Do you think there's very many people who would say that? No, they don't say that. They're screaming that taxes are too high, but yet they keep going up. And we have been hoodwinked, flim-flammed, and conned because, Stuart, you're absolutely right on the money. Everything is a scam. Rich?
Well, it is, and you were talking about farmland. I can guarantee you, and I've been reading some subliminal drops on this here and there. You know how Bill Gates and Bezos and a lot of the rich people are buying up the ranches and the farmland. They're doing that because they want starvation. They want a shortage on food. So I'm reading here and there, and they're going to start connecting the dots regarding the allocation of resources, which is going to go down because they want depopulation. So the size of the ownership of the farms and ranches are going to get first dibs based on your need, according to your size, regarding these resources, like you mentioned, fencing and feed and machinery and all this other stuff. So having a co-op is a really good idea. When I first got into the pharmaceutical industry back in the early 80s on the East Coast, what the pharmacists did, the independents, and that kept them alive a little longer. Obviously, it's 99% chain drugstore right now. But what they did is they got together with a bunch of different independents in their region, and they went to the jobbers, with the wholesalers, and they basically negotiated a price similar to a chain drugstore. So they would have a warehouse to store. They would all combine their capital resources, buy a warehouse or lease it so they can buy more bulk and buy the products at a cheaper price. So I would recommend, if you're going to do that, the way the elite are buying up ranch and farmland hand over fist, I would do that yesterday, sooner than later. But Vince, what I'd like to do is, before we get into the next topic, I want to mention something that I've talked about before, and it's regarding President Trump's going to pardon a bunch of people today. He's talked like 100 people, including Assange, maybe Snowden. I want to put in a bid, President Trump, if you get this, for Schaefer Cox. There's an article here by his attorney, Robert John, Alaska State Attorney. He was kidnapped and entrapped. He's a family man. He's a constitutionalist. I heard him speak in Hamilton, Montana years ago, and I've talked about him, but he really got set up by the feds, by the federal government, and by bought and paid for informants who ratted on him, that tried to entrap him by putting illegal guns in his hands, all this stuff. And the informants were so compromised, they were grotesquely compensated over six-figure payments to each of their informants to put Schaefer Cox in prison. So I can go into more detail. President Trump, please consider Schaefer Cox in your pardon. Thank you.
Rich Scheben with us. And class, I mentioned yesterday, and I'd like to just mention it again. Gwyneth Isaacs in Australia is in the hospital. She fell off her horse and got really banged up. She has 9 broken ribs, 2 fractured vertebrae, broken, fractured scapula, punctured lung, and dislocated her hip. And she was able to pop her hip back in place, and she is recovering. But she's in the hospital. And I think it would be very kind for those of us in class to share our prayers and add Gwyneth Isaacs to those prayers if you pray. Also, if you would be inclined to send her an email, you can send it to me. I don't have her permission to share her email address. It's not that she didn't, it's not that she said it out. It's just that I didn't ask for it. So if you'll send those to instructor at USA Prepares, I will send them to her post haste. Instructor, INSTRUCTOR at USAPREPARES.com. Instructor at USAPrepares.com. Rich, I don't want to take time today to answer this. However, you asked me a question and I would like to answer it completely in depth on Thursday or Friday, when I may have an hour by myself. I'm not sure if I will. Kathy's going to be interviewing me on Thursday. Kurt Wilson will be with me for 2 hours on Wednesday. And Gwyneth will be back in a few weeks, I'm sure, on Wednesdays. And Bert will be interviewing me about electrical wiring, my style, the way I do things, on Friday. But I may have an hour on Thursday, and I may have an hour on Friday. I'm not sure. But you asked me a question off the air, and I'd like you to, if you wouldn't mind, ask me that question so our class can hear it in your words, and I will answer it completely on Thursday or Friday. And that question relates to, if you had some extra money, would you buy a new car or truck? Would you ask that in your own words so I can answer it on Thursday or Friday, please?
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of ambiguity, and I can go into many different tangents, but I won't, regarding the the election was obviously stolen. I've given 1,250 pieces of evidence. I'm going to talk more about that today, and I'd like you to give me a little more time to do that, Vince. But I think there's so much ambiguity, so much lack of trust, so much lack of confidence. They're talking about printing money, which would make a drunken sailor jealous. Fiat currencies in general, I just look at what's happened to the U.S. dollar in the last 2 months, major decline. I just think people are very unsure of the future, whether it be saving for retirement, whether it be, and I usually say it in the context of, let's say you don't have debt to pay off, okay? Could be a house, could be a car. That's always recommended. However, if the bond market is going to crash and interest rates go up, you're paying back cheap dollars, which could be chicken feed in the future if you do take out a note. But I don't have a crystal ball. So my question is always revolving around, if you sell something and you have a little bit of change in your pocket, is it best, especially in the context of combustion engines, which they want to eliminate off the market by 2030. Is it a good idea to buy a vehicle, whether it be new or used, just to have it for inventory? Now, and see, there's so many different caveats to that, too, because the criteria and variables change depending on the person. See, if you're someone like me, I spend a lot more time in things like food, water, shelter, energy, and making those things myself. So that's where I put my energy. We can't be 100% self-sufficient in everything. I mean, I don't drill for my own oil and refine my own gasoline. So if you're someone that doesn't care to fix things, you don't like it, or you have other priorities, that's my question. What do you do with the money? Where do you put it? In today, where we have so much ambiguity and uncertainty about the future of value and purchasing power. And I hear the music, so obviously you'll answer that on the other side.
I'll answer it. I'll answer it in a couple of days, but I'll direct it toward the technical aspects of the mechanics and electronics. Rich, back to you.
Well, thank you, Vince. Now, here's an article right here on Gateway Pundit regarding my question, if you will, that I can go into so many different tangents regarding what to buy, purchasing power of the dollar. Biden gang plans to grow economy by blowing trillions with hopes of eventually getting to the Trump economy. See, this is called inflation. This is called hyperinflation. When you look at the bailouts, folks, the too big to fails, the welfare for the rich, and thousands of articles, and Vince can confirm that, that I show how all the money has gone from the little guy to the big guy, where the rich get richer. This is what's going to happen. It's just like the advertisement about minimum wage during this last break going to $15 an hour. That's going to eliminate small business. It's going to eliminate productivity. That's going to eliminate any innovation from the little guy to start a small business if they want to hire people. So basically, it just solidifies all the benefits for the big people, for the zombie companies, for the companies who get the too big to fails, the too big to jails, that get all the money under the table, get all the grants, get all the subsidies. This is how America is run today. Even the big companies are hardly even earning anything. So what I want to do, Vince, we talked about the military briefly, and I wanted to do that again. Mentioned a couple articles here, and I have so many articles, if you don't mind. First article is 93% of military votes in one Georgia county went to Joe Biden. They literally flipped the votes. What the Democrats have done has disrespected, degraded the military. And that's why I was talking about earlier on what their decoded message is to the military. It's to ignore your oath, ignore the code, ignore your honor, duty, despite all the votes being switched from Trump to Biden, as per this article and many I've mentioned before. This is all done to basically have unchecked power. This is basically to hide the crimes that have been done. This is a travesty. In America, like I mentioned earlier, start flying your flag upside down, half-mast, and start playing taps around the country, because these people who asked to defund the police are now running a police state. This is really, really sad time. Next article, Democrat lawmakers suggest white male military members may be seditious conspirators. This is all to create race war, all divide and conquer strategies. This Representative Cohen, I think he's from Tennessee, he basically said, and I'm quoting him, the National Guard is 90-some-odd% male. Only 20% of white males voted for Biden. There are probably not more than 25% of the people that are protecting us that voted for Biden. Basically saying that they're going to create violence against the Democrats, even though there's so much evidence of them stealing the election. And Apple just announced $100 million of racial justice donations to people who hate whites, to anti-white terrorists. You can't make this stuff up, Vince. And of course, just a little humor here. Now we have professors around the world saying that gardening is racist. No, gardening is self-sufficient. Gardening is nutrition. Gardening is helping other people. Gardening is a skill set, but they do not want that. With all the information, Vince, here, Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, claims that China interfered in the 2020 election, CIA mismanagement, MIT professor who received $19 million in federal grants charged with undisclosed China ties. Mike Lindell says he has 100% evidence, 100%, that China was used in machine stealing. I've given so much evidence of election and voter fraud. Like, for example, Jovan Pulitzer, he said, I mentioned this the other day, he's got evidence that's vetted and factual that 65 foreign countries participated in attacking 7 key states, over 600 county polling locations, and yet the powers that be do not want to discuss this. This is really sad. And Peter Navarro came out with a third study that shows voting irregularities and illegalities, by state, dead voters, double voters, absentee voters, there's a whole category. And Arizona, I'm going to mention this real quick, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, respectively, illegal votes in those states I just mentioned in that order, 254,000 plus, 601,000 plus, 446,000 plus, 220,000 plus, 992,000 plus, 553,000 plus. And you know what the Joe Biden victory margin was? Victory, by the way, is in quotes. Ready? 10,000, 11,000, 154,000, 33,000, 81,000, 20,000. There is such a huge difference between illegal votes. This is a joke. America will not forget. This is a scam. We are a third world banana republic, and it's very sad. You know, what I've done for the last 2.5 months, I've studied so hard to try to give all this factual, objective facts and evidence of election and voter fraud. And all the media comes up with is two pieces of evidence. Liar, liar, pants on fire. And come on, man. The powers that be aren't even looking at the evidence. This is from the Supreme Court, the lower courts, the state legislatures. Even though the state legislature, the powers that be, committed fraud on you and the Constitution by illegally casting you aside by this establishment and letting the state Supreme Courts, the governors, the AG, the Secretary of States, and the dog catcher change the rules and the laws right before the election. This is a joke. Not even allowing signatures to be verified. This is a joke. I have so much evidence on this. In fact, one piece of evidence right here, basically, it just highlights 5 and talks about hundreds of ballots being found all over. They talk about the Georgia late-night hidden suitcase heist, where they identified Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Shay Moss, and their boss, Ralph Jones. This is sad. And they show videos of them running the same batches of ballots 3 times through the machine. This is pathetic, Vince. And they're on audio telling reporters he was going to shut down the State Farm Center early and send observers home. This was before the suitcase heist. They had no idea they were going to get caught, even though one of those ladies were caught on audio saying, "I bet we're going to get caught." And then there's audio of the Georgia election official Ralph Jones announcing on November 3rd evening that counting would stop at 11 p.m. It's on tape, audio and video. Then they led the team to count the stashed suitcase ballots. This is really, really pathetic. You know, and there's some more damning tape that just got released the other day showing orders from higher up, quotes, "We're paying $100 an hour, offer excuses," quotes, with Ruby Freeman and another guy coming up and saying, "Do not talk so loud, they can hear you." This is on tape. This is really sad. And we're not even in America anymore. Plus they did the drop and roll, shutting down 5 states and then dumping hundreds of thousands of late night votes for Joe Biden. This was, they had a pattern that the patterns in all these states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Virginia, caught doing this drop and roll pattern. And once Biden gained the lead of these because of these massive vote dumps, all the votes, the rest of the votes all possess the same Biden to Trump ratio. This is an impossible math. This is math impossibilities, not improbabilities, not glitches, not irregularities. And then there's blocking GOP poll watchers in all these swing states. Literally kicking them out, covering windows. This is pathetic, people. This isn't America. This is a banana republic. And then there's all these votes switched and deleted from President Trump by the millions, and that's proven. Never mind the votes being switched on live television. Never mind all the evidence against Dominion and the connections to the internet and the USB cards. Never mind the U.S. Postal Service drivers having almost 300,000 completed ballots and driving across the state, and then his trailer gets stolen. I'm sorry, Vince. The American people aren't going to let this go. This isn't even close. This is a absolutely stolen election, and the American people are not going to shut up about this. Do you have any comments, or do you want me to go on with... I have a bunch of articles regarding the so-called siege and all the hypocrisy and double standards that the left has done over the last few years. Do you want me to go on to that, or do you want to comment on what I just said?
I have a couple comments on what you said. But I got to go back a little farther. You mentioned minimum wage. Back in the 60s, the minimum wage was $1.25. I was working at a sub sandwich shop, making submarine sandwiches at the local sub shop after school. And it was an honor. And the minimum wage back then was between $1.25 and let's say $1.30. I was paid $1.35 an hour. And let's contrast that with what you said. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because when you talked about, the stumble bum and raising minimum wage to $15, here's what I believe this means. Now, I did study economics and finance for 6 years. So I know just a little bit about it. Not very much, because I don't understand the system. But I do understand supply and demand, and I do understand costs. So currently, the minimum wage is not $1.25 or $1.30. It's $7.25. That's the minimum wage, federal minimum wage. Now, if that were to go to $15, as the Stumblebum would like, reportedly, that's more than double. Now, the current cost, I looked it up, of a Subway brand, which I would not eat, sub sandwich. It's kind of an alleged Subway sandwich. They're not very good. That's really not a sub sandwich. That's nothing like what I used to make at the local sub joint. Well, their foot-long Subway club sells for $7.75. Now, applying the economics that I learned because of electricity, rent, heat, light, labor, grains, nut, all the stuff, taxes, cleaning supplies, uniforms, franchise fees, insurance, etc., that sub would go from $7.75 to about $15.50. It's unaffordable. It's not going to work. And Rich, one of the points I was trying to make is that the jobs at sandwich shops and behind the counter at stores, those kinds of things are generally low-paying jobs. Those are the entry points for the workforce to be trained. And if we raise the cost of doing business by doubling the minimum wage for those positions, there won't be those positions. The mom and pop stores, the behind the counter sales positions, etc., the sandwich shops, the hamburger flippers, those will go away because no one is going to want to pay $15.50 for a lousy submarine sandwich at Subway. Nobody. So they'll all go away. And that's the wrong thing to do. The free market really needs to adjust those prices rather than have the government say you will put yourself out of business by raising the minimum wage. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Vince. It's just going to be more of an entry for robotics, automation, artificial intelligence to take more jobs. And even if it doesn't, for some reason, any employer that has 5 to 10 workers, they're going to end up having 1 to 2 workers. What it's going to do is take more people out of work, but it's designed to. They present everything and manufacture the perception as being benevolent, but they know it isn't. It's malevolent.
You're absolutely right.
Malevolent.
It's designed You hit the nail right on the head with automation and robotics, because that's what I did. Literally, back in banking, we had young people. It wasn't about money per se, but these young people who answered the phones and talked to customers about their balance on their credit cards, they didn't want to come to work on Fridays. And so the boss said, hey, you can't take off on Fridays. That's our biggest call volume day. So then they took off Monday because they wanted a 3-day weekend. Okay. So the boss said to me, hey, Vin, I want you to build something. I want you to build something to fix this problem. So I built in an automated system. Press 1, press 2, press 3. One of the first in the world for sure. So that's how business deals with it. You know, you have a problem, you can't afford the workers, so you replace the workers. It's as simple as that. Now, I'm embarrassed and ashamed of what I did building one of those systems because I hate them. But that's what happens everywhere. Everywhere. You have problems with the employees showing up, putting the lug nuts on the assembly line in Detroit. You get a robot to do it because they don't complain. So instead of having 15 people in the assembly line, you have one robot. And you have one guy that shows up once in a while to adjust the potentiometers and to tweak the robot to make sure that the nuts are at the right torque. It's as simple as that. Back to you.
Well, plus the fact you can't prove motive on a robot, so it's probably less liability or more liability immunity and less chance on getting sued. So
let me explain it this way. Class, you won't believe this. You know what a PC looks like, right? So remember when PCs used to be towers? Okay. So we took a folding table, you know, like you could get at Costco or Sam's Club, 6 feet long, and put about 8 of these tower computers on a folding table. Each one of these tower computers could answer 8 phone calls simultaneously. So 8 times 8 is 64. So on a 6 foot wide table, we replaced 64 people. No kidding. No kidding. Back to you.
Thanks, Vince. You know, some of the articles I just mentioned already, like, John Ratcliffe, D&I, talking about all this China interference. We've given, and Joe Van Pulitzer saying 65 countries interfered in the swing states and 600 counties. You know, we have China everywhere. We have Feinstein, who had a 20-year spy working for us. Swalwell was doinking a Chinese spy. We have all these articles from universities and professors taking China money, the Biden family taking tons of China money, 1 million times what they accused Trump of doing with Russia, but yet no one's going to jail. You know, it seems like our CIA, our FBI, and our intelligence agencies have really turned into a bought and paid for to the highest bidder Gestapo. They don't care about our country. They don't care about their oath. They don't care about anything anymore. It's really sad. So anyway, I'm going to talk about some of these rioters. And this is a flashback of hundreds of violent left-wing rioters, smashed windows, set limousines on fire, did a bunch of stuff. And this was the left doing this on Trump Inauguration Day. And NPR and CNN photojournalists, they were embedded with Antifa during this so-called siege of the Capitol. So it wasn't just Blantifa that initiated this. CNN was part of it. This is really sad. And nothing happened. Next article, Antifa activist Daniel Baker arrested for plotting to murder Trump supporters, and it was on YouTube. He said he used George Soros' money. Next, caught on video, Antifa protester John Sullivan brags about posing as a Trump supporter, breaking a window at the U.S. Capitol. We'll talk more about him on the other side of the break, folks. Be right back.
Yeah, America is really, really unhappy. Extremely unhappy. And according to the news, of all 50 states, Missouri is the most stressed. Most stressed about the economy, most stressed about life in general, most stressed about outlook. It's pretty bad. We're number 1, class, Missouri. Rich, I'm pretty sure the name Dr. Richard Levine, maybe pronounced Dr. Richard Levine, might come to mind. Dr. Richard Levine now is Dr. Rachel Levine. And why this is significant is President Jumpin' Joe, the plagiarist, selected Jumpin' Joe, the plagiarist, has nominated Dr. Rachel Richard Levine as Assistant Secretary of Health at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And so this transgender guy, who's now claiming to be a female, is going to be in the number 2 spot at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This is how far we've fallen. So what is on this guy's diploma? He went to an all-boys school. Did it say Rachel or did it say Richard? And what is on the medical license? Is it Rachel or Richard? And is it proudly displayed as, well, I used to be, but now, it's changed. We had some plumbing services done. This guy can't even look down and see what's what. And yet, this guy who claims he's now a girl, transgender, is, quote, Dr. Rachel Levine will bring the steady leadership and essential expertise we need to get people through this pandemic, no matter their zip code, race, religion, or sexual orientation. I think that should be gender identity or disability. I think they mean sexual disorientation or sexual confusion. That's what Jumpin' Joe said. He didn't say the sexual confusion part. I helped him with that. Can you imagine? That's how far we have fallen. So when you think about what has happened to this country, which Rich has been talking about for close to 3 months now, ringing the alarm. Here we are. Tomorrow is the day we celebrate having a stumble into office. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Vince. And I have been talking about it for years, actually, but a little more, the consequences of where we're going if this installation takes place, which sure looks like it's going to. All under the guise of elite control, under population control, all the agenda things that I've talked about, eliminating supply and demand. Basically, they want more war. They want more eugenics, more genocide, less people, less procreation, more dirty vaccines, more liability immunity. Keep in mind, folks, when you say, oh, don't worry, we're going to get these guys. No, you're not, because they've bought tens of thousands of acres of ranches and farmlands. They got bunkers hidden. They got yachts they can wait it out in the ocean. They got islands. They got jets. No, they're not. They want us to fight it up against each other, but they want to lower the bars of standards and expectations while giving them liability immunity, poisoning our foods, our water, social and political indoctrination camps, blackmail, all orchestrated by the sellouts, the mercenaries, the bribery, the money laundering, lowering the bars of standards and expectations for a job based on what group you're in, eliminating the rule of law, the Constitution, incorporating the more divide and conquer strategies, creating different rules and laws and accountability for different people based on different groups. And when I say eliminating family, they want to get rid of mother, father, brother, sister, anything that makes an individual. Okay, they want to put you in groups, but they don't even want you to talk about your group unless it's for the benefit of stealing more money from the little guy, more freedoms, more liberties, more justice, and giving it to just a few elite at the very top. So what they want to do is continue to separate thinkers from followers. And if you say anything, you're controversial, racist, bigot, sexist, and you've heard me say all these basically anti-Islamist phobes, and they want to call everybody by labels, white supremacists and all this stuff. That's how they separate people. That's how they manufacture perception. And what the so-called lieutenants are doing in the interim is manufacturing their own perception of their own self-importance for their own self-preservation. That's code for feathering one's own nest. So people are realizing there's a major wake-up where they're realizing they've been used, they've been played, they've been duped, they've been psyoped. And if you don't conform, the people who are the sellouts and the tattletales and the snitches, the people who pass on second-hand, third-hand, fourth-hand information, rumor, gossip, and hearsay are the ones who are going to get the jobs and not the people who have the merit. So success will have a new definition as well. Basically, it's all about the sellout. It's really sad, but let me go back to a few more objective facts, a few more articles that I was talking about before the break. And here's an update. YouTube removes a video investigation of Antifa, BLM, let's just call him Antifa organizer, John Sullivan. And the brother of Antifa activist John Sullivan actually turned him in because he says his brother was somehow in charge of the Capitol riots, his own brother. But no, it was all Trump supporters. See, it's all BS, folks. When I say that the mainstream media and the powers that be are in control of hoaxes, propaganda, false flags, which we're going to see a lot over the next few days, and lies, and that's especially gaslighting, I've given many, many, hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of that. Next, anyone could put on a MAGA hat. A Florida teacher was fired for telling his students that Antifa was involved in the D.C. riots, which has been proven. Heck, I've probably given dozens of proof just by little old me and myself. Next, new video shows police turning their backs on anarchists escaping through a U.S. Capitol window. Police turning their backs on anarchists escaping. See, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're bought and paid for or blackmailed or threatened, that's the name of the game. That's the MO today. Next, MSM celebrated when thousands of Democrats seized Wisconsin Capitol building. Remember that? 18-year-old liberal lesbian turns in her family to the feds as Capitol riots expose. There's no good news here, folks. The only really good news is the North Dakota governor basically says the statewide mask mandate is going to end. Okay, everything else is bought and paid for. Parler CEO flees home with his family, goes into hiding because he's receiving death threats for free speech. And as my disclaimer goes, I try to remember every time I'm on the air, these are all published articles in the public domain. I do not make them up. Science and tech groups involved in U.S. Capitol storming receives over $500,000 in Bitcoin by a French donor. You see, folks, all planned. We've given evidence upon evidence upon evidence. Oh, here's a good one, folks. Leaked Zoom call shows that U.S. federal employees, the people you're paying their huge salary, their benefit package, and their pensions, conspired to sabotage the Trump administration. It's on video. Where is our people? Has the DOJ and the FBI and the CIA and the DNI, Mr. Miller, where are you? The people are asking. Is everybody a welfare worker? Does no one do their job in government anymore? Next, Biden to ask Congress for citizenship for 20 million illegal aliens on day one. Folks, they are vetting our troops, but they're not vetting illegal aliens, and they're not vetting our own votes. You are irrelevant. America, you are irrelevant. They think you are stupid, and you've given up. Next, phone data used to hunt down Capitol attendees. When you go somewhere, folks, and pardon my harshness, if you're dumb enough to take your cell phone with you, they're going to entrap you and say you're in a crime. It's just like sending in your DNA, okay? Just like getting a swab for coronavirus. If they want to, all this DNA with these vaccines, there's patents on that, folks, okay? They can actually say you're part of their GMO crop. That's how corrupt things are going. Next, trending Antifa militant arrested for plotting to murder Trump supporters during inauguration. He received Soros money. I think I mentioned another one of those earlier. Hardcore leftists arrested for plans to attack Florida state capitol. You can't even make this stuff up, people. This is Virginia Republicans stripped of committee assignments for encouraging Pence to nullify election results. So if you tell the truth, you're going to get fired. Isn't that great? Even the director of Biden's National Economic Council has been forced to admit the economy is spiraling downward. There's no confidence. There's no trust in the system, in the powers that be. You shut down the economy for months and months and months. What do you expect? Small businesses out of business. What do you expect? Next, Clinton and Pelosi suggest Trump was following Putin's orders to allow capital siege. They think you are so stupid, it's almost impossible to comment on this. With all the illegal stuff that these people have done, it's proven that Hillary Clinton and the DNC paid for the Steele dossier. Next, globalism, Bill Gates buying up huge amounts of farmland for the Great Reset. Okay, this is, while at the same time these people are hypocritically saying that there's going to be no more private property. Think about that. Yes, there will for them, not for you. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey caught on camera pushing mass censorship agenda. Twitter executive details plan for political censorship on a global scale in recording obtained by Project Veritas. That's the plan, folks. We all knew it, but James O'Keefe solidified it and proved it. Amazon boosts Parler for users' violent language, but hosts merchants selling Kill All Republicans shirts. Please look that up. Verify everything we say. We do not make this up. These are all published articles in the public domain. Hardcore leftist plans to attack Florida state capitol. For all those of you who are Republicans, it's pretty obvious everything now is a false flag. Everything is for entrapment. Do not go to the state capitals anymore. Do not go there. We are so corrupt in America. And if you bring your phone wherever you go, if there's a crime, they're going to pin it on you. Do you understand that? If you're in the area and you're a Republican, they're going to make it up. They're going to sell the propaganda, the hoaxes and false flags, and you will be arrested. There's nobody you can call, and there's nobody you can trust in government anymore. It's over. America is a third world banana republic. We'll be right back.
Class, it's been reported that there are three kinds of people. First, there are those who make things happen. Second, there are those who watch things happen. And third, there are those who say, what happened? And it's been widely reported that the president-elect is the third kind. Rich?
Well, of course. There's so much corruption. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's so much. Yeah. I cannot count how many foreign interference facts, articles that I've given. You know, here's another one. Chinese military-linked entities, including those behind extensive cyber attacks and espionage, funneled at least $88 million into U.S. universities over the course of 6 years, according to the Washington Free Beacon Review of Federal Records. Duke University operates a joint campus in China with Wuhan University, a public university that carried out cyber attacks on behalf of the Chinese military. Raw intel even includes indications that the Chinese networks amplified messaging that painted Trump as a white supremacist, and this is from the DNI. Do you know that even Mitch McConnell and his wife are financially tied to the Chinese government? These are facts. I've read all this stuff. Vince, how can this fake election be sanctioned with all this evidence of foreign interference? Where's the Insurrection Act? Where's the 2018 executive order, President Trump? What the hell is going on? Is there anybody doing their job in government?
Well, how about the promises? How about draining the swamp? I don't even think we found the swamp, let alone drain the swamp.
Well, I think he tried to do the best he can. I think he's surrounded by traitors and cowards. I mean, look at this.
Absolutely.
Mitch McConnell. Absolutely. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, let me mention a few more articles here, Vince. Feds are warning to amateur radio operators not to commit criminal acts ahead of inauguration. That's code for you guys have the ability to spread the word around the country and the world. We don't want you doing that. You have to spread our false narrative. That's what that means. CNN demands cable companies blacklist OAN and Newsmax and all conservative-leaning, factual news sources like us. We're not supposed to say anything. Everything's got to be sanctioned from the top before you even discuss anything. Michigan Secretary of State ordered to release all communications with Dominion Big Tech. Well, we're 2.5 months past the election, Michigan Secretary of State. Obviously, everything has been swiped or changed or plausible deniability. That should be a liability. Plausible deniability. That should be a verb. We should change that. I'm sure they will. 7 months ago, Kamala Harris bailed out criminal rioters. Now she wants to punish capital insurrectionists, even though bland Tifa, with all this evidence, created this, videos and evidence. And remember that Boogaloo leader who aligns with Black Lives Matter? He boasted publicly about organizing an armed insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. It's all documented, all of it. And Joe Biden, he hosted an inaugural, I don't know if you heard about this, Vince, he hosted an inaugural celebration on YouTube. Only 24,000 people in the world paid attention. And then Trump, he creates a celebration of himself at the Alamo, of the people, and gives a speech at the Alamo. Over 800,000 people were tuned in. And yet Joe Biden won the election? How stupid do they think we are? Anti-Trump BLM transgender protester with unlicensed pistol and high-capacity magazine arrested near Capitol. Can you imagine if any legitimate Republicans were doing 1/1,000,000th of these behaviors? It would be slapped all over the news and taken out of context. Even AOC says when she was in the so-called secure location, she didn't feel safe with House Republicans because they sympathize with white supremacists. We are not this stupid. FAA approves fully automated commercial drone flights, Vince. Corporations now at war with the people. They're giving money to bury evidence of election fraud to pay off rents who hide it. Is this America? Am I dreaming? We'll be right back. What a joke.
Les, I'd like to take a minute and put an exclamation point on something very important that Rich Scheben mentioned. He mentioned cell phones. Cell phones being used. You've got to be a fool to carry a cell phone with you and not realize that you're being tracked. Every call recorded and your exact position being tracked within maybe 3 or 4 or 5 feet, maybe 6 feet. Your bank is tracking your every purchase through your credit card. The credit card vendor, whether it be Amazon, whatever it might be, Wahlburgers, wherever you buy, the drugstore, there are records of all that. The records combined with the bank records and your cell phone, they know where you are, what you buy, where you've been, and what you're thinking about. Rich mentioned that, so you have to be a fool to carry a cell phone with you if you don't want to be tracked. I don't have one. Neither does Mrs. Finelli. Rich also mentioned, two-way radios, and he talked about the FCC and how it is illegal to use a two-way radio to commit a crime. So for those who are plotting, crashing, slashing, bashing, busting, and burning, and they're using their two-way radios, that is a crime. It's against the rules and regulations of the Federal Communications Commission. That includes Family Radio Service, known as FRS. That includes General Mobile Radio Service, known as GMRS. That includes ham radio. That includes Bofang two-way radios, citizens band radios, walkie-talkies, etc. There are tracking mechanisms known as triangulation. So if you think you can key up and you can't be tracked with a two-way radio, you're confused. They've got you with your cell phones. They've got you with your two-way radios. They've got you with facial recognition. They've got you from towers and cameras everywhere. If you go to Washington, D.C. to make your opinion known, you are foolish, in my opinion. Foolish. It's not working. It's been reported that there were 5,000 National Guard troops about a week ago. Then a couple days later, 10,000. Then 15,000. Then 25,000. I believe the real number is closer, and I reported this, 50,000. 50,000 troops armed with what? Well, they've got Humvees. And if, you know, we talked about this in the years and years ago. What are these Humvees being deployed all over the country for? Why? Now you know. And if you look at the wheels, you will see that there are way more bolts holding these wheels together. There are two halves of a Humvee wheel, and you can look it up. You can look up run flat. And what they have is an inner stabilizer, so that if the wheels or the tires get a flat, the rubber tires get a flat, no problem. They can keep going because they can run on a flat tire. Now, why in the United States of America have we deployed in Washington, D.C., Humvees with machine gun turrets? Why have we deployed weapons that are like AR-15s, M4s, weapons of war, automatic weapons, select fire weapons, shotguns, tear gas, etc.? Why have we deployed all of these, at least 25,000 troops with them? Why? Now, add to that the police. Why? What's the big deal? Obviously, they're expecting the people to be frosted because of what the people believe happened. And they're going to put it down. They're saying this is a show of strength. This is who we are. This has got to be by far and wide the most expensive installation in history. Fences, barbed wire, razor wire, stingrays, tracking devices, cameras, bulletproof glass, vests, anti-ballistic vests, troops with specialization like nuclear, biological, radiological, sharpshooters, snipers, SWAT teams, all for your viewing pleasure at the installation Wednesday. I don't ever remember anything like this happening. Do you feel comfortable? Do you think that Rich Scheben is right when he says we are a third world banana republic? I think he's absolutely positively right. Here we are. I did not vote in the selection. I told you my vote did not count for anything. And guess what? It did not. I don't plan to vote for anything anymore. I'm not going to waste my time. Nothing I do makes a difference in terms of the official system. Nothing. Class, you are on your own. The message that you probably should take away from this is if you think things are getting better, I think you're confused. And if you're wasting time trying to get other people to realize that they have to provide for themselves, you're probably still wasting your time. I have almost all but given up on trying to help other people because they're as dumb as a box of rocks. Many of them. Those that are in our class already get it. I'm not talking about you, class. I'm talking about people who you know, people who have given you a flat forehead because you've been banging your head against the wall, talking till you're blue in the face, trying to get them to understand how bad things are. They think it's going to get better. They've lost their minds. Rich?
Well, Vince, we have more troops now protecting Joe Biden than we ever had serving in Afghanistan. Whether we have 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 troops to protect him from the people, like I mentioned earlier in the show, that means you weren't selected by the people. That's what that means. President Trump, it's been proven thousands of times that he won in the biggest landslide in presidential history. Not just the evidence I gave today, but the evidence I've given over the past 2.5 months. They won't even do proper signature checks. They won't do, this Jovan Pulitzer is begging President Trump to do an executive order to check machines and ballots forensically. He's got proof that 65 countries changed our election. Foreign interference. That's against the law. Is there anybody who's looking at the Constitution? But guess what? The Dems are saying when Trump calls for peace, that he secretly means violence. I have the article right in front of me. I'm not making this up. Everything I say is published in the public domain. But President Trump, I have a question to you specifically about that. You say that we're not supposed to break the law. We're supposed to be the party of the rule of law. Well, today, with all the hypocrisies and double standards, which is like a second culture in America, which I've given for months, with all the breaking of laws, the breaking of the Constitution, what are we supposed to do when we don't have rules and laws that represent the people? What do we do, President Trump, if people in government don't even do their job and care more about manufacturing the perception of their own self-importance and, of course, self-preservation? When everybody's bought and paid for or blackmailed or threatened, and they fear a few people at the top and don't want to make sacrifices for the millions of people, what do we do, President Trump? What do we do? When the bars of standards and expectations for a job get so low on the basement floor that hard work, proven results, and qualifications no longer make any difference, value is totally questioned. When there's certain people that demand no protection, rights, and restitution under the rule of law for the people affected and targeted, and there's no checks on runaway power, what do we do, President Trump? When they enable and protect the most corrupt companies in the world with liability immunity, change laws with precedents, give free lunches to the elite right in front of our eyes, and people are brainwashed into protecting their own group, hyphen, and pronoun over their own country. And we see more wealth inequality, more the destruction of capitalism, more the enforcement of fraud, more illegitimacy, more fascism. And you say we're the rule of law party. When all the people have been exhausted, all the courts from the bottom to the top have sold out the people, what are we supposed to do, President Trump? Even in Washington State right now, they are proposing legislation to guarantee that they will win future elections and prevent public disclosure of all fraud. Fraud, legally, does not have a statute of limitations. I discussed that, the other day, last week, whenever it was. But yet it doesn't matter. Because rules, laws, and accountability are dead, and their only matter is what pertaining to what group you're in, what your victim group or protectionist group status you have. That is it. So what are we supposed to do? Vince, what are we supposed to do if we have exhausted every resource? We've went to all the courts, all the lawyers, all the judges, and they sold the people out, and they don't even look at evidence. And they literally say, liar, liar, pants on fire, or come on, man. And that's all they got. And we're showing up with evidence, with videos, with affidavits, with witnesses, with mathematical improbabilities and statisticians. Evidence after evidence after evidence. I am out of breath talking about all the facts and evidence. And we get back liar, liar, pants on fire, and come on, man. Vince, if we can't go to the judges, the lawyers, and the courts If we can't go to the attorney generals, if we can't go to the governors, it's just a few people at the very top have been bought and paid for and sold out to blackmail. What do we do? Vince?
Well, I believe I just said it. We're on our own. There's a well-known economist by the name of John Kenneth Galbraith. And he was born in 1908. He died around 2006. He said that there's a reset every 20 years. The economy collapses every 20 years because that's how long it takes for stupid people to forget. So the economic system of the United States is a house of cards. The stock market's a house of cards. Corporations are a house of cards, and that's why they keep selling themselves to other corporations. That way they can get rid of their warranties. They can say, well, yeah, but we're not the same company, so we're not going to honor the warranty. So that's what happens. Rich Scheben's with us. Rich, this will sound like I'm off topic, but when I said we're on our own, there's nobody to call, let me give you an example. I'm at eBay right now. I'm looking at a pair of audio speakers for a car, 6 inches by 9 inches. This listing says you can buy them for $79. And I'm not recommending these. I'm telling you that this is misinformation. These are lies, according to my way of thinking. They're rated at 700 watts. 700 watts. So some GDPer would think, wow, that's 700 watts. They must be really, really great speakers. I'm here to tell you 700 watts is almost 1 horsepower. You put 700 watts into these things and you will see a puff of smoke within seconds, like maybe 1 second or 2, literally. So here we have a lie, in my opinion, about speakers rated at 700 watts. I have a pair of speakers from the 60s, made by James B. Lansing. They're called JBL L100s. They're classic speakers. They weigh about 46 pounds. If you put 50 watts into those speakers, 50 watts, and I believe that's the maximum that they can sustain without turning to smoke, it will literally drive you out of the room. That's 50 watts. These guys on eBay are saying that theirs are rated at 700 watts. What I'm saying, where's the crackdown? Where is the government saying you can't lie like this? You can't misrepresent your products. There's nobody to call. It's wide open Mad Max. You are in control of your own destiny. You are on your own. There's nobody to call. Nobody to protect you from electromagnetic radiation. Nobody to protect you from smart meters. Nobody to protect you from chlorine, fluoride, glyphosate. There's nobody to protect you. You're on your own. The Congress thugs have decided that you are not entitled to know what's in the food that you eat. MSG is able to be called by a whole bunch of names. If you listen to advertisements, we'll give you the credit you deserve. Well, you probably don't deserve much. I'm not talking about our class. So they'll give you the legal representation you deserve. Well, what do you deserve? I mean, listen to the words that are being used. You are being led to slaughter every possible way. Healthcare. Where's your doctor? Can you get a doctor's appointment? Can you? How about elective surgery? Can you get it? We are being manipulated, coerced, conned, forced, bludgeoned, every way I can think of. And the only thing that you can do, class, in my opinion, is get out of the way. Not get in the way. Forget the protests. It's not going to work. What's going to happen, probably, and I'm not advocating this, it's going to be terrible. What's going to happen in many people's opinions, according to what I've been reading, is it's going to get worse. It's going to go the way other civilizations have gone. Societies have gone. Revolution. It happened here in America. 1775. 1776. The shot heard round the world. It happened. And when government gets too pushy and tries to tell you what to do, then you have civil war. 1861 through 1865. These things last about 4 years. First World War, Second World War. The war of northern aggression. I don't see any way out. People have had it. And what's the straw that's going to break the camel's back? I don't know. But I already have said, I believe we are already in the second American Revolution combined with the second Civil War. It's already started, in my opinion, here. It's simmering. It hasn't gone full blown yet. But when it does, it's going to be awful. When it's going to happen, I'm not so sure. Rich?
Yeah, Vince, the Congress, our politicians, courts, institutions, corporations, big government, everything, this is a planned sellout. This is by design. Okay, we've talked about this in great deal. But you mentioned you were talking about Health Secretary Rachel Levin to be Assistant Secretary of Health. Remember, you were talking about that, right? Well, there's some breaking news that she got her own, I'm going to say this slowly and clearly so you know what you're getting into, America. Rachel Levin got her own mother out of a nursing home before ordering, let me say that again, before ordering infected patients into them, leading to countless deaths. Let me say that again. Rachel Levin got her own mother out of a nursing home before ordering infected patients into them, leading to countless deaths. Just breaking news. So, there you go, folks. You know what to expect.
Yeah, and Rachel used to be Richard. So what does the high school diploma say, Richard? Or does it say Rachel? I think it says, I haven't seen it, but I think it says Richard. We are twisted. This guy doesn't even know if he's a guy, and he's going to tell you what to do. Rich, thanks so much for being with us.